All right, welcome to Infinite Impact Radio and TV, the show for impact influencers by impact influencers with world-changing missions. And I have with me a very special guest, somebody I'm excited to have on. It's a brand new decade, and you're one of my very first interviews of the new decade, Maya. So this is Maya McNulty, and I'm really excited to have you. We were just chatting. We're in a coaching group together. We were there in the beginning, and this is the first time we've really talked to each other in person. So before I let you introduce yourself, I'm going to jump in because I saw this on your Facebook profile and I loved it. And I wanted to share this. It says, this was Maya's Facebook profile. It says, I am the fundraising maverick. I maximize fundraising by thinking like an entrepreneur. So I think that really wraps up from what I know of you and what you do. That really gets it in a nutshell. So if you would, well, first, welcome and thank you for being on. And if you would, just sort of connect the dots on who you are and what you do so everybody can get to know you a little bit.
Evan, thank you so much. And Happy New Year to all your guests. I hope that the year has started out to be fantastic. And, I pick a word every year to help me to stay focused. And so maybe your word can be focused, or perhaps you can use the word. My word last year was intentions. Like if it aligned with my intentions, I did the thing. If not, I didn't. If it didn't move me forward. So for 2020, my word is impact. And it's crazy that I'd be your first show on impact, talking about impact. So I'm really honored to be here. And yes, it is true. I maximize fundraising by thinking like an entrepreneur. I'm a hardcore, I see you have the Die Hard shirt on, Die Hard entrepreneur. And I hope this message today, as we're talking to your audience, that they're inspired and that they want to have world change and not only say it, but actually be active and take action in being that world change that we so need today, especially if they have young children that are watching them, to inspire them. I know I have a daughter now, she's 19 in college, and throughout the years, I've taught her how to be a volunteer, how to have impact in her community, which actually led her to get a scholarship for studying. So you never know who's watching or who you're impacting or what the reward would be. And you're not doing things because of the reward or the pat on the back. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Do you have integrity? So I'm excited to share the story with you. And I look forward to your questions and getting to know your guest a little better and you.
Oh, great. You know what? I love that you mentioned that because on the podcast artwork, I have an image because when I had this show, I had in mind, like the pebble hits the water and it creates positive ripple impact or effects forever. And when I think of this generally, I'm thinking about the people we work with. But you just pointed out, you never know who's watching you. Maybe it's your child or your children. And I thought that's actually really cool. I never thought about it that way because the positive things we're doing and the impact we're making, they're being recognized by our children. So it's really making we're not just expanding out to our clients into the universe that way, but also into our family. So I love that you brought that up. You're the first person that's ever mentioned that. And gave me a new way of thinking about it.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I feel that how, a lot of it starts with you, right? And it starts in your home. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're kind in your home, you're going to be kind out in society. If you're miserable in your home, you're going to be miserable out in society, right? We're a reflection of that, right? It's a mirror. So I want to lead with positive impact. I want to lead a legacy that people are proud of, and they're proud that they knew me once or they knew me when, and that they were able to grow, that I was approachable, and they enjoyed the time that I spent with them and the impact that was, whether it be for an organization or if it was just a nice coffee or a friendly conversation, somehow impact them in a positive way. Sometimes people think you have to do this big thing to have impact, right? Maybe you have to run a race or get into shape, or you're like, how do you feel inside? When we pour from a full cup, and you don't necessarily have to be 125 pounds, an ideal 5'6", 125, 24-inch waist, which I was once. But but you know what I'm saying? Like, we all have this ideal image of what perfect looks like. And that's part of, I think why, when I think of, I do advertising. So when I think of commercials and way people feel, they're comparing themselves to what society's norm is. But today we're just a melting pot of really a lot of amazing goodness. And sometimes people feel that they get these insecurities because of all these things that are plaguing them and telling them they have to be like this, they have to do this thing, they have to be this way. But if you start pouring into yourself and pouring into your family and bringing your family along, that message resonates and it gives them longevity. It gives them something to look forward to. It builds a tradition, right? When people like Thanksgiving, they're like, oh, let's go feed the hungry, or Thanksgiving, let's go for a run. Like there's a tradition. In the summer times, let's go for a hike. Like this is our tradition to go to this skiing camping place. Like they look forward to that. You give them systems, even though it doesn't seem like a system. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're doing a system, keeping it consistent. And so getting your message, that's the thing too, when you're doing your message out there to people, be consistent, have clarity in who you are, be consistent, and be congruent in the message so that you can lift them up to not necessarily where you want them to go, but maybe give them a path so that they see the journey that's clear and easier for them to go. So that's my take on it.
Definitely. I love it. Well, before we go into where, you are now, let's take a little step back. You and I are both come from this whole ClickFunnels world. We know all about the origin story and everything. But I love starting with that. I love to hear people's stories about where they were before they may have had an epiphany that made them want to do the thing they do now, because it's really inspiring. And as you mentioned, it helps sort of us put ourselves in their shoes, and also to see ourselves on our own journey when we can see it with other people. So if you would just share a little bit about where you were before you became the Fundraising Maverick, what you were doing then, and maybe why, if there was something that, an epiphany that caused you to go in that direction.
Yeah, sure. I want to backtrack a little too. I studied fashion merchandising and design in college. I went to school in Boston. I was able to go to London, Paris, and Rome to do design work for the ghost houses and things like that. As a young kid, exciting. And, we feel like we're so invincible when we're young like that. But when I moved back to New York, from Boston to New York, met my boyfriend at the time, and we've been married 21 plus years now. Really proud of that. And it wasn't always easy, but yeah. So in that journey, a period of time, I reinvented myself so many times. I had studied fashion, but in upstate New York, there wasn't really a fashion house. And here I was in the big, like New York City and Vegas and California and Italy and London and Paris, like these big houses. And so I thought, this small town girl is going to do that here in Albany, New York. So I tried to find a job and no one would hire me because no one fashion in upstate New York just didn't exist. And so I said, okay, that's fine. I ended up getting a job selling insurance, which I totally hated, but I was an overproducer and I got fired from that job. I ended up going on unemployment, wrote a business plan, and I said, okay, I went to school for fashion. I'm going to open a dress shop. So I decided, you know what, the easiest way was, the path of least resistance was to open a used consignment shop. Now, today you'll see thousands of Play-Doh closets, right, and recycle, and how cool and trendy it is, right? But when I was figuring it out, it wasn't. Like, people were like embarrassed about wearing clothes that was recycled, or Levi vintage jeans, like they didn't get it. So I named the store Vintage Boutique, and I had new and contemporary fashions, recyclable clothing, sustained in Scotia, New York, which is like blue collar, white collar, like there's,
Right.
like it just didn't work. So I had to rename the company. I renamed it Village Boutique. And when I did that, in the funnel business, we say that how you're just one funnel away, right? So one tweak away. So I changed the I and the N to ILL, so Village instead of Vintage. And so Village Boutique, and it took off. And so I went from a 900 square foot store to a 1,200 square foot store. And as I was doing this, women were coming in, and there was a franchise that people were going bonkers over. And that was a Curves for Women franchise. And the Curves for Women franchise, as my women were coming in and buying new clothes, which was exciting, and I was able to pay my bills and college loans and save money for my wedding. And I asked the ladies, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys all look amazing. You're so happy. Like, oh, we go to Curves. And so I was like, oh, I got to find out what this is. And so I ended up going, and they're like, had franchise opportunities available. And my dress shop was doing so well that I bought my first franchise cash in Schenectady, New York. And then the thing is that you go to conferences and they get you to buy one more. So then I bought Albany, New York, and thinking this was going to be amazing. This is the answer. And I always, like, I played volleyball in high school. I ran track. I was always a little bit on the athletic side. And then it like went away because I now don't even run or anything. I'm going to try to get back on that though, tangent. But I said, all right, I want to do this. So my husband stood by me like he always does. And I had the dress shop and the Curves and Albany. Went from like just myself, managing myself, to managing 2 stores, 20 employees, payroll, workman's comp, taxes. Like it was my journey into entrepreneurship 101, bootstrap, but yet it was like full bore. And in 3 years, I went from making a fortune to like, let's say $5 to 5 cents, right? It's like it went to making money, like massive amount of money, to like no money at all. So my lifestyle changed, and it was a 10-year contract. So for 10 years, I didn't know how to stop the bleeding, like most entrepreneurs do not know how to stop the bleeding. Not only that, I was so young, I didn't understand the concept of money. 100,000, 300,000, 500,000, 700,000, those dynamics all change, right? So I didn't understand that. So I had a hard crash course on how to understand $500,000. What do you do with the $30,000 account in your bank account? Like you can't just leave it there because you end up paying taxes. You got to learn how to do this stuff, right? So so I got the help I needed, and the accountant and the lawyers and the expertise, right? I hired people that were smarter than me. And in doing so, after 8 years of like almost bleeding to death, I said, I'm now on the verge of bankruptcy, now on the verge of marriage being like almost divorce. Like it was just horrid. And I took a year off. Most people thought I was retired, but I have a summer home, and I was hiding. I was embarrassed because here I was high in the hog and now I had nothing. And I was reinventing myself, and I went to a bankruptcy lawyer. I went to a divorce lawyer. Like these were hard, dark times back in 2008, 2009, 10. Lost my building to foreclosure in 2010. So I said to myself, what am I going to do that's going to help me, that's going to make me feel better? And everything I was doing so far was because of a lack of knowledge. Oh, open a dress shop. I didn't do the market research. The market didn't tell me that they wanted that, right? Curves, because everybody was so popular. It was a fad. I said, oh, I wanted it because everybody else wanted it. But I never asked myself, what does Maya want? And today I ask myself that question all the time. What does Maya want? Where's Maya going? And because I have clarity now, I know exactly if it's right for me or not. What are my intentions? What's my impact? Where's my legacy? I ask myself these valid questions, and then I make better choices because I have a clear goal, and I brought the target in a little closer so I could hit it every time. So if it doesn't align with my intentions or my focus or my goals, I just don't do it. Because I've learned so much. And that was a hard road when you're thinking divorce, and you're thinking a young child that you have, and you're thinking your house and your homes and your cars and things that you own. I mean, literally everything can be gone in a night, right? So I rethought of it, took a year off, wrote a 1-page business plan because I felt like such a failure. And I said, okay, what do I know how to do? So I said, well, I know how to market. I have a marketing degree as well, bachelor's in marketing. So I said, why don't I try marketing to businesses that were struggling like I was when I owned my franchise, and things that I learned from corporate, from Curves and stuff. And I said, okay, let me implement some of those things. And so I came up with Up the Biz. I wanted to help your business create something new, and so that you'd never, it's all positive, being up, right? Being up, never down. So I said, I want everything around me to just be that. But I still didn't find fulfillment in that. I designed a app that helped alleviate child hunger. And that's when it started to strike like, oh, that's what I should be doing. I should be helping more organizations to learn how to fundraise. So I started 7 years ago helping Leukemia Lymphoma Society, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., Special Olympics, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I used the same process, every single one, and they raised anywhere from $30,000 to $620,000 in a 10-week period of time. Amazing, using the principles. So I said, I got to put this in a book. And I attended Funnel Hacking Live 3 years ago in Orlando, and I had the epiphany. And Evans, that no one can give you the epiphany. You have to have it. So Russell was on stage and he was saying, what are you going to do? Like, he was asking me the question, and I'm like, I had the epiphany, like, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to write the book, Fundraising Secrets.
Wow.
And so I like, that was the aha moment. And my business coach at the time, Rhonda Swan, was like, that's what you have to do. That's like what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, I don't know. Am I supposed to do that? And some days I wake up and I don't even want to roll out of bed because I'm like, is this what I'm supposed to do today? But every day someone reaches out to me and says to me, can you help me fundraise? There's a cause. There's this thing that needs to be solved. We can use your help. And it feels, not that I need to be wanted, but it feels so good to have the solution to the things that people need and want. So, so I wrote the book, Fundraising Secrets. I also did write the book, My Favorite Quotes for Entrepreneurs, Your Interactive Guide to Inspiration and Empowerment, which is this one. This is my first book. And Russell actually put his name, Alex Sharpin and Russell put their name on the back of this book, which is
Nice.
180 of my favorite quotes, 7 principal business exercises. And because I had owned Curves, there's a 30-day journal to keep you inspired and empowered. So I paid dearly for that lesson, but I rewrote the story and I changed the ending.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people need to do, is change the ending of their story. And as I thought about it, it took me 14 months to write this book, Fundraising Secrets. And it's literally the underground playbook for nonprofits to be able to fundraise fast, grow sponsors, build a massive donor list, upsurge donations, and impact the world. And this book has now been in hundreds, I won't say hundreds of thousands, but definitely a large number, definitely in the thousands of people's hands. And as we get this message out to more people, they'll be able to take fundraising to the next level. I also have the Fundraising Secrets course and the workbook and the podcast, Fundraising Secrets. And also we just started the online course, which is Fundraising Secrets, Fundraising Made Easy. So, so we have all the tools needed for people if they want to impact the world on their time, a do-it-yourself, have it done, perfection every time. You cannot miss because it's step by step. It is made easy for you to be able to take the thing that you love the most, whether it be your daughter's Daisy's troop or your softball car wash or your the Leukemia Lymphoma Society blood cancer big thing or mental illness. It doesn't matter which one you take it to. The system works for every single one. It's been tested. There's case studies in the book. There's case studies all over in my presentation, in the masterclass, in the course itself. And when you come to Fundraising Secrets Live Mastery, we go over the case studies and teach you. So anybody can do this. I'm nothing special. And Evans, I also want you to know that I did fail high school. I had to go to summer school. I failed English. And here I have 2 books now. So again, you can change the ending to your story. It doesn't have to be like that. And interestingly, on my Instagram, there has been comments like, oh, you must be so like, because didn't you have to go to summer school to graduate? And, you know, and it's like, okay, well, you need to grow up, 1, and 2, again, my story will end differently because I changed the ending.
Right.
And anybody that's listening today, know that you can change the ending. Find that one person that inspires you or become that person to inspire others.
Yes,
Change
definitely.
your mindset to do that. It's your attitude that will get you from one place to the next.
Well, I want to go back in time again real quick, because there's something that I think, I love the whole change the ending. And I love the point that you talked about how it was a lesson, you know, like with the trouble you went through and everything you went through with Curves, and like it wasn't a failure. It was a lesson that you learned, which is very important. I think everybody that's listening needs to take that away, as well as changing the ending. Those 2 things are huge. But I wanted to ask you, now you said you went, you sort of pulled yourself out and went away, and people thought you were retired, but you said, you know, in your own words, you were hiding out. So
I was depressed.
during that time, because I'm sure it was, you know, it's hard. Were there things that you were doing to sort of, you know, like daily rituals, things that you started implementing that helped build yourself up first before you were able to go back out and reinvent yourself in your business? Was it something that you were doing on a regular basis that you could share with the audience that maybe help them as well?
Sure. In the beginning, my pride and ego was in the way. Until I made peace with my pride and ego to say, listen, you're human. You made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Have you found a perfect person? And when I would say to myself, you're not perfect and you need to forgive yourself. Like, you tried. And it's okay if you don't try. It's like following up. If you don't ask for the sale, you're never going to get it, right? You got
Right.
to keep following up, right? So I gave myself permission to forgive myself. And I also started journaling. And once I started to write the story over, I really started to become in tune with my senses. Like, so I have a summer home up in the Adirondacks, and it's by the water. And so I was sitting on my hammock, and there's a fire pit there. So I started to really take in the inventory of what I was grateful for. I was grateful for the dewy, wet sand, the smell of the burnt marshmallows on the fireplace with the waves coming in, but gently, but yet crashing against the rocks. Like, those things people never have a chance to experience. The wind, the tree that was dead, but there's an eagle on it. Why did that eagle choose that spot? Like, those things I started to think about. I'm like, it's what I create it to be that I can have. And I started to think of myself like, okay, I'm so grateful for the breeze that's coming in. I'm so grateful for the mountains and looking at the mountainside. Like, no one ever gets to see this, like, but I do. I started to take inventory and be grateful for the moments that I had and had gratitude. Even though I was fighting with my husband at the time, I was grateful that he was able to stay with me and understand me. And I was grateful that I didn't have to change our daughter's lifestyle. Like, we were able to protect her.
Right.
As a mom, like, as a parent, sometimes that's one of your biggest fears and failure, right? So things like that, I just started to think abundantly. Even though I was in such a place of lack and darkness, I just started to think of all the abundance that were around me, the beauty, to appreciate everything else. And that got me through the dark time. And then when I started to do that, I'm like, oh, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do that, right? And then I was like, okay, I'm creative. I'm really creative. I can learn how to do graphic work. And so I did, and it sucked. My graphic design skills were horrid, but it was what I learned in school, and I started to pull
Right.
it aside. And then I hired a girl, and I'd say, this is my idea, and I'd spend time on it, and then she would take it over. And now I have beautiful, beautiful graphics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just, like, taking time to take inventory of what you want to appreciate. Here you are, and where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself? Give yourself permission to forgive yourself. Give yourself permission to fail, and say, okay, I'm okay with that, and
Right.
then move forward.
Yeah, I love that.
Um,
Actually, I think it was yesterday. I was actually watching something. I can't remember. It was, and there was a mention of they were talking about gratitude. And when you're in the state of gratitude, you cannot also be in the state of fear or in the state of anxiety. So I think I love that pointer to tip to give everybody, like, just start journaling down the things you're grateful for. And you know what I really liked is, because going back to what you mentioned previously about, you don't have to do the big thing. You don't have to run the marathon. Just go out and run around the block first. When you were doing your gratitude things, you were choosing things like the wet dew on the grass or whatever, just the small things to be
yeah,
grateful for, because a lot of times we forget about all the small things that we have to be grateful for. So I think that's a great pointer. All of that's very good. So I appreciate you sharing that.
you're welcome. I remember that day as it was 7 years ago, but I remember, like, how lonely I felt, how distant, how vulnerable, how destitute, how embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
all those things. And if I did it again, and my parents would say, get a job. My friends would say, get a job. Most of them wanted you to get a job because they didn't understand entrepreneurship to begin with.
Right.
And I'm wired differently. If any other entrepreneurs are listening right now, they are wired differently, right? There are people, they get how we are. We are relentless. We're the only ones that will work 80 hours a week
Right.
and not get paid, and say, why would you work 40 and work for
Right.
minimum wage?
Exactly.
Like who's got their marbles all loose in there? So, but yeah, it's true. We have to believe in ourselves. When we believe in ourselves, and the mindset that we can accomplish anything, and we have to teach our kids that too,
Yeah.
that they can
Yeah.
be everything, anything that they desire. All it is studying. That's all it is. That's how I wrote a book, is I just looked it up and studied how to do it. Step 1, 2, 3, having a process, writing a course, doing a podcast. At first, I'm sure, Evans, when you started this podcast, you had to figure some things out,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't that easy, but now it's like clockwork. You can do it straight up, no problem.
Yeah.
Bam, bam, boom. And people are like, I'm so intimidated by that. They're like introverted with being even on a Facebook Live or even on a podcast. They're like, okay, how do I do that? And it's not for me. And I interviewed someone earlier, and she said the same thing. This is my first podcast. I'm really nervous. And you know what? I knew she was nervous, and I can strip stuff out. But I just let her talk because she was so excited and her anxiety. And I think the second time, like, you have to know where people are. You can't do what you want. You have to let them do what they want. Let them be where they want to be, and then eventually they'll get there. So
Yeah.
sometimes we rush people and rush things, and we want it, immediate gratification. So we have to be able to be patient in this new world. Impact doesn't just happen overnight. It compounds, right? So that's something really important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to jump in because I know I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show. And so I always like to touch on some business aspects too. But one thing that interests me, because there's and you being a podcaster as well, but there's so many platforms out there to get our message out. There's no excuse to not be loud because you can be out there anywhere. But I'm curious for you, whether it's for you, your personality, and the people you're trying to attract and affect, the tribe, what platform is your favorite, is the most effective at getting your message out and attracting and affecting the right people?
Okay. This is a big question, and I have to tell you, I hope they're listening, because if you are putting all your content on Facebook, you don't control Facebook, and Facebook can shut you down anytime. In fact, it just happened to me.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
been shut down from Facebook until January 30th. It is the first month of the first quarter, and I do a lot of marketing on Facebook. And Facebook, someone must have reported me, and they have temporarily blocked me on any groups
Wow.
for the month. Now, that's going to hurt my business. It's not, they're blocked me in anybody else's group. So in our 2 Comma Club group, I can't post in there. In some other groups that I belong to that I pay for, I can't post in there. I can't be active in it. I can but I can't I can't comment. I can't ask questions.
Right.
So if you're only using Facebook, know that you don't control that. If you are going to be using YouTube, there's some guide. Like if you're in a children's audience, there's a lot of laws against the children. There's new stuff happening with YouTube. I don't know all the laws, but you can look it up, and there's some places there. Instagram seems to be really good. The TikTok has become really popular if you're into the videos and short. I'm not a Snapchat person, but to get my message out there, and it's so important in today's business that you start building your own list. The list you
Right.
own, the list you control, the list you can market from anytime, any day. You have the control and the power over your list. So if you ask me, where should they go? They should use their favorite CRM to be able to build their list, whether that be Constant Contact or Actionetics with ClickFunnels or Aweber or whatever they decide. But choose a platform that you can actually control your list and build your list so that you can have a business. If you do not have a business, if you do not have a list, you do not have a business.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many friends you have on Facebook or followers or on Instagram or Twitter or social media and any platform. LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms, by the way, to play. But you need to build your list, and so that you have complete control of your content, that you're consistent, and that you can actually convert it. Most of the times you cannot convert because Facebook doesn't like you to be selling on Facebook. So you have to be able to have a place where you can convert those leads, drive engagement, and and always be creating something where you can tell your story. And sometimes Facebook is not the place to do it because they control you and your audience and even driving traffic. And it can be expensive. So
Yeah.
owning your list is the best way for you to go. In my opinion, LinkedIn is the next place that if I wanted to play, LinkedIn would be the next place. And then after that would be Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, building a list we both heard Russell tell that story before, how having a list saved him many times over his career. And it's true. I mean, but the one thing that and I'm sure I heard you mention this too, is it's a good place to tell your story and stories. I think it's really smart. And I'd be interested to hear from you. Because you need to stay engaged with that list. So many entrepreneurs make the mistake of, I've got this email list with 10,000 people on it. Well, how often do you send them emails? Well, it's been like 5 months. It's like, okay, that's really not helping you. It's not serving you really that well. So do you have like a system in place where you make sure you email people a certain amount to keep them engaged? And in those emails, do you focus on more relationship or more selling, or a combination of both maybe?
A combination of both. And first part question is, how frequently do you email your list? So if you're Russell Brunson, it's every day. If you're other marketers like I'm trying to think, Grant Cardone, it's every day. If it's Gary Vee, it's every day, right? They are just
Right.
content producers and they just get their list out there, and they have hundreds and thousands of people that they're reaching and targeting to with a different message. If you're Ty Lopez, it's an every day, right? If you're Maya McNulty or Evans, you're probably twice a week. And what I do is, the people that don't open it, I do the 3-day, unless it's a weekend, they'll do 4 days to resend that email to the people that have not opened it yet.
Oh
But
yeah.
I set up 2 emails a week. So in essence, it's going out 4 times if they don't open it, right? So, but twice a week. But I'm thinking for 2020, I'm going to start opening it to 3 times a week. And I schedule it. So if I'm traveling or if anything's going on, it's scheduled and it's consistent. If you're going to be sending emails and nurturing your list, this is where it's a cool opportunity for you to sell, whether it's going to be affiliate or your product, or even having them listen to your podcast. Being consistent on a regular basis and having them be top of mind. And you might think that you're bombarding the email list, but they're probably looking forward to your story.
Yeah.
They're searching to build a relationship. There are people out there that actually look forward to hearing from you and like your business and the services, or they wouldn't have subscribed or opted in. And the option is to unsubscribe as well. So if they don't want to be there anymore, they can actually unsubscribe.
Right.
So if you're not serving them in your list, and they're there because they want to be sold to, they like what you have. So don't feel like you can't sell to them, because that's why they're there. They opt in because they know what they're opting into.
Exactly.
Right? So,
Exactly.
so don't feel like you are doing them a disservice. You're actually doing a disservice if you don't sell to them. And you're doing a disservice to them if you're not selling to them and selling at a higher price, because they want what's different about you.
Yes.
They've already picked you. They chose you out of thousands of people out there. They chose you to be on your list so that you could sell them the one thing that you have. Now, in my footers, I have backlinks to, like, if they want the One Funnel Away challenge, like affiliate stuff, right? I also have my podcast. I have a Calendly if they want to hook up with me to schedule an appointment. So those things are like in my footer. But then I have a content where I'll talk about something. So this week I talked about my relationship with Russell Brunson and the 2 Comma Club, and the big conversation was, hey, if you lost everything. And I can relate to the story because back in 2008. So if you're interested in taking this 3-day summit, which is the One Funnel Away challenge, so that's my affiliate one. And then I have my podcast, like, okay, here's a new episode of podcast. So those are the 2 that I have out this week. One today and one tomorrow that'll go out. And then the people that didn't open it will have another opportunity. So just being consistent in that, but I would always be selling in my emails or offering value that would lead to me having some type of a sale.
Right. Right. Well,
Have to be consistent.
one thing you said that I hope everybody heard, because it's really important, and I was actually going to sort of jump in and say this, and then you said it for me, was if you have something of value to somebody that can help them, you're doing a disservice by not selling it to them. You know, a lot of times a lot of people have that mindset where I don't want to sell, I don't want to seem pushy, I don't want to be the used car salesperson. And we're not saying, and you're not saying to do that, obviously, but if you have something valuable that's going to help somebody, then it's, you know, as Uncle Myron says, it's your moral obligation to sell that to them because they
You're
need
right.
it, you know. So as long as you're
They,
providing value and you have a valuable service and you know what you have helps people, then you should never feel bad about sending emails. You know, you should never. And I like the fact too, one other thing you said that I want everybody to hear, because I think a lot of people have hangups about this. And we did the same thing in our business that I was in previously, was sending, you know, if they don't open that email, don't be afraid, if your CRM allows it, which most do, to set it up to resend that same email to them again in a couple of days, because people get busy. It's not that you're bothering them. They probably never saw it. Or by the time they get the second one, the first one's buried 100 emails deep. So it's not like you're being obnoxious by doing that. So I'm just curious too, when you do that, do you see a difference in your sales numbers by sending out that second email? Does it help if they haven't opened the first one and they get the next one?
yeah, your open rate churns. It does. It increases.
That's good. That's good to know,
Yeah.
because I know
Yep.
we did that in the past too. And I was just curious. That was a little bit of a selfish question. So anyway,
Yeah. Nope.
'cause-
It does. Listen, they already raised their hands to tell you
yes.
they like you, they want to do business with you, they're consuming your content. But what else do you have? And Russell brought this up as a value ladder, right? The value ladder is the thing that got them into your email list, you know, that free offer, that
Hmm.
content that resonates with. Then the second thing is like that book offer or that course or ebook or pamphlet or PDF that says, okay, this one thing will solve this problem that I have. The next thing is your webinar where you're having a master class and you're sending them up and you're giving them the opportunity to say, okay, I like what you have. I don't really know you. I'm starting to consume your stuff, but if I could learn a little bit more and spend some quality time with you, pulling at those love languages, what else do you have that would make my life easier? And now they're consuming your webinar and your courses. And if they really like you, they'll start coming to your live events. And after that, they'll say, hey, will you work with me one-on-one? So you can see the ascension, you can see the progression of people wanting to work with you. I use a similar model in Fundraising Secrets as a value ladder, but it's a way to drive, the value ladder drives donations, it drives volunteers and an ascension so that they stay longer within the organization. And as they stay, their network and the net worth increase. So that's a different way of doing it, but it's the same concept. Just like a dentist would say, hey, you've got, you need tooth cleaning, right? So come on
Right.
in, get your teeth cleaning. And then after that, it's like, you got yellow teeth and now he's selling you white teeth whitening. And then, oh,
Right.
you got a crooked teeth, now you got braces and Invisaligns. And then, oh, you got a chipped tooth, now you're selling me cosmetic surgery and not, now, you know, you took me up the value ladder there. So,
Right.
so businesses, grocery stores, everybody's been using it. It probably was never explained that way to you before, not you, but because you know, but the audience,
Yes.
and they can see that they've actually been part of a value ladder, a process, and they've also raised their hand to say, yes, I want that thing. Just like the market would run an ad saying we have 10-cent bananas and 5-cent eggs. You're running in there, but you're going to get more than one thing. That lead led you to come in and buy those 5-cent eggs and 10-cent bananas, and then you bought steaks and lobster as you
Right.
walked out, right? So they ascended you up the value ladder of their organization. So it's like McDonald's, you want fries with that, right? They
Yeah.
just ascended you and made more money to supersize the value meal. So that's the same concept. It's just taught a different way. And if you can grab the concept of that, then you are able to serve more people and give them that attention that they deserve. Now, you can't work with everyone, and nor do you want to. And not everyone's going to agree with you, but the people that have raised their hand have said they like you, and they're basically saying, sell to me. I'm
Yes.
interested in what you have, sell to me. So you shouldn't be ashamed of that. you got to get comfortable with asking for the sale. Get
Yeah.
comfortable knowing that you deserve to make a living and enjoy this life of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, because you can't, if you're not making money, you can't serve anybody. You can't serve your mission that you want to
Exactly.
have. So, all right. So
That
one
makes
last question.
that makes sense, because
Yeah,
if you're not making money, you can't donate to the causes that you are actually passionate about.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So
So it's
you're
really
right.
smart. I mean, that's the one thing about entrepreneurs that I think, at least I hope I'm seeing a trend, I feel like, or maybe it's just the networks that I'm in, but I see so many impact driven entrepreneurs where the goal is not to, hey, I've got this new fancy car, I've got this. It's I'm making money to create a legacy for my family, but also so that I can then impact the world the way I want to, whether it's donating, whether it's starting my own organization, whatever it is. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are going in that direction. At least I hope what I'm seeing in my little network is really going on outside of the network as well, because sometimes we do have blinders. But one last question I want to ask you, because we
Yeah.
are in a new decade, and then we got to wrap things
Yeah.
up. How moving forward, if it's like one big thing you're planning on doing moving forward, how do you plan to serve your tribe at the highest level to transform their lives moving into the next decade?
It's a good question. Evans, everyone has a different thing that is for them, right? Like someone just losing 10 pounds, that might be their first goal, and that's the thing that they want to achieve. So, or maybe they want to run a marathon and they have to take months and months of training, right? Or maybe they want to write a book and just need the fundamentals of how to write a book. Everyone has a different thing that they're going to aspire to be. But if someone wants to do one thing, the way you do one thing is how you do everything. You have to just get started. So whatever you want to do and accomplish comes down to your attitude, mindset, and just doing it. Like Nike says, just do it. Get out there and do it. Start doing, make a plan, have a structure, and follow your structure. That's how you're going to accomplish what you want to do in 2020. You have to have a structure, you have to have a plan, and you have to just go at it, do it, mindset. There's days I wake up and I don't even want to get out of bed, you know, and whatever. There was dark times, but now I'm like, okay, this is only affecting me.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to just make the decision to decide to just go after it and do it, get it done. Make a plan, give them a timeline, give them a hard deadline, and say, by this date, I have to have this done. So
Yes. And
make a
you know what I
plan and do
like
it.
that what you mentioned earlier too, you don't have to go from 0 to 10 at once. You can go just, take the first step, because you can't take the second step till you've taken the first step.
You're
Um,
exactly
so,
right.
so I love that. I love that. Well, I appreciate you being on here, and I was
Yeah.
trying to think, I'm attached to this cord. I was going to jump over here and grab it. I've actually got your book,
Yeah,
Fundraising
cool.
Secrets, because I'm working with a nonprofit.
I'll put it up.
Yes, there you
There
go.
you go.
Fundraising Secrets. I'm working with a nonprofit now, sort of on a pro bono level. A friend of mine who has a nonprofit that actually works with young school children to help them, sort of give them the opportunities that they're missing out on, like career guidance, helping
Sure.
them find leadership, develop leadership, things like that. So it's a really cool thing. And I immediately, as soon as I talked to him, and I'm like, he's like, I need your help with marketing. I'm like, I understand that part, but I said, let me do this. I got to get this book. So I went and grabbed your book right immediately and started reading. So I can just attest to the fact that it is very, very valuable. And
Thank
we've
you.
already sort of implemented some of the things from that book with their nonprofit. So moving into this decade with them, I expect to see a lot of success, especially going back to Fundraising Secrets. So, with that being said, I just
Cool.
want to,
Hey, let me add one more thing just to help your
yes,
organization. So organizations like that, it's hard to have events. So what you want to really do with that is create a sponsorship ask, and create that and then send it out to some of the biggest corporations that you actually have passion for, not just because you want to spam them, but they
right,
align with the children's missions and their goals. Like like Crayola crayon, pencils, like things that resonate with those children and children organizations.
Oh, I
Go
love it.
after those companies for sponsorship ask. And you can find them going to hunter.io and search global marketer for Crayola crayons or global marketer for Play School, right? Like the companies, I'm trying to think, Fisher Price, like
Mm-hmm.
the names of big brands that align with children, and go after them because Pampers, right?
Yes.
I think there might be Johnson and Johnson, but there's divisions. And each division, you want to send it to all those different divisions because each division has their own checkbook. And most people don't know that. So they
Yes.
have their own checkbook that they can say, okay, we want to sponsor, our organization wants to sponsor this, our department wants to sponsor this, right? So you send that sponsorship ask to each of those departments. And that's where, and I would make the sponsorship. I wouldn't ask for like $500. I'd start at like 2,500, 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, and then show the impact of the number of kids that they're going to impact and with these dollars. And if you can show the impact, then that's when they say yes to that sponsorship ask.
I love
So
that.
yeah, so that's how that section of the book works. And I teach that in Fundraising Secrets Mastery, and I also teach that on the online course of Fundraising Secrets. So that's the hidden secret where people are like, how do I get the money? How do I get the money? If you do events, you got to get people. Like, it's a strategic way to do it. And that's how we did $100,000 for NAMI, by doing an event. But there's other ways, and just doing a sponsorship ask is the number one way for you to actually make money quickly. And people are like, oh, I'm going to get grants. Like, there's grants out there, but not for what you want to do. I mean, there's out there, but it's hard for you to get because you're competing with so many other organizations. But if you just write a really smart sponsorship ask, reach out to those specific companies, go to a toy store and Mattel, right? Like, I'm starting to like think and like just throw them at
Yeah,
you because this is what
definitely.
I do, right? So you just write down all these big toy companies, right? And then you reach out to them. They all have a global alliance manager that can write a check up to $20,000 with one signature.
I love it. So everybody
Yeah.
listening, there you go. That was like immense amount of
Boom.
value right there. So yeah. Um,
Yeah.
well, before I jump in to let you share a few places for people to find you, I want to just share a few takeaways that I had.
Yeah.
I could have a list of hundreds, but I just limited it to three today. Um, just these are for the listeners. These are things that I picked up that they can actually go out and start implementing now. And one of them was to change the ending of your own story, which I loved. You talked about that in the beginning. You know, you have the ability to change that ending. Number two was consistency. You know, that was a theme that you touched on quite a little bit throughout this podcast. I think if everybody reminds themselves, consistency in your publishing, getting your stuff out there, consistency in the way you just everyday actions, everything that was very cool, like consistency in your gratitude practice. Consistency was huge. And third, coming from this is from our mentor himself. You don't have a business until you have a list. You got to build your list. That goes for, nonprofits, everybody, especially a nonprofit organization, because think about how inexpensive it is to send out an email to 10,000 people compared to reaching 10,000 people on Facebook or sending out a flyer to 10,000 people physically. So build a list. I think that's huge. And the last little bit of value, if you guys want to rewind just a bit, that last thing you just dropped, value bomb, was awesome. So I appreciate it, Maya. Thank you for coming on. And I
You
want
got it.
to give you the opportunity real quick, where people can find you, and I'll put the links in the show notes as well. But if you don't mind, just the best place to get in touch with you and how they can get your book or anything else you want to share with them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Evans, thank you so much, first of all. I really appreciate the time, and thank you to the listeners. And I really appreciate and hope they share this and this content resonates with them. If you're looking to get in touch with me and want to learn a little bit more about Fundraising Secrets, go to fundraisingsecrets.org, fundraisingsecrets.org, and all the information is there. And if you're looking to attend one of my events, it's events.fundraisingsecrets.org, and they can get in touch with me in there as well. And everything's in the footer of how to get in touch with me. So if they go to those fundraisingsecrets.org or events.fundraisingsecrets.org, everything's in the footer, and they can get the books and access to some of the VIP training.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And get on your list so they can get your emails.
Oh, they would get on the list when they do that. That's for sure.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Maya. Once again, I appreciate it. And I hope that we'll connect. Well, people that are seeing this, it's already going to happen, but I hope to connect with you in Funnel Hacking Live in a couple of weeks in Nashville, Tennessee.
I will
And
see you in Nashville.
yes, I do appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
I appreciate you as well. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.